Welcome everyone to Just Onside. I'm your host Ahmed Badjo Baghdadi, and I am joined by Harry Maguire's number one fan, Ayub Patel, and I'm sure this man will be cheering on his beloved Tottenham Hotspur against Sheffield United this weekend. Uwais Ahmed, how we doing, gents?
Might be going top of the table. All right. But I'm doing well, thank you. It's been a long week, good week, but looking forward to the weekend. I'm doing well. Are you dressed in all Leeds white? Clearly,
yes. And I'm delighted the international break is over and done with. Is there anything more boring than that?
I know,
It's
right?
awful, isn't it? Really. So delighted.
Do you want to tell us quickly who you're playing over the weekend, Ayub? And when I say quickly, I mean like about 13 seconds.
A spicy affair against Millwall.
Oof.
A real
I'll
humdinger. Live and exclusive on Sky Sports on Sunday at 12 o'clock midday. And it's live.
I'm sure a lot of people will be tuning into that. Going from the irrelevant.
Viewing figures 18.
Don't even go there. Leeds are the biggest show in town in the Championship.
Yeah, I'm glad you stated in the Championship. But yeah, like I said, going from the irrelevant to the relevant, let's talk about the hottest story in town, which is the Erik ten Hag versus Sancho story that's broken over the last week or so. I just think it's come at such a time for United where you wake up, if you're a United fan, you're waking up every day and you're finding something in the news with regards to your club, some kind of controversy, more statements than away wins this year. It's absolutely, it's getting a bit out of hand. It's a bit ridiculous right now. We've got Jadon Sancho feeling the need to make a statement after Erik ten Hag called him out for his lack of I was going to say fitness, but I guess it's more to do with his training and his quality in training and training the right way. And he felt like he had to straight away go to social media and make a statement about that. You got Harry Maguire doing Harry Maguire things. You got Anthony with his current case going on with regards to domestic abuse. So at the minute, it's a tough time being a United fan. It's the controversy non-stop, but the Jadon Sancho one is the one we want to concentrate on the most, and then I'm sure we will touch on the game. Just briefly, I am just checking to see whether you're all up to date on the Jadon Sancho story.
I can speak for myself and say I am.
I'm not. No. I know there's some nonsense going on, but that's about as far as it goes.
Some nonsense. Great insight.
So I'm looking for an insight from you as to exactly what's happened, so I can offer an opinion.
Oh, well, if we back this whole thing up to last season, and then we arrive at a stage in the season where everyone is like, "Where the hell is Jadon Sancho?" And he's just out the picture completely at United. No one knows where he's at. He's not in the squads. He's not training. Erik ten Hag sends him away to Holland to train away from the team to build up his fitness again, and he protected him in the media as well. In fairness, made sure every story was a non-starter. Basically, he let Jadon go for 2 months mid-season as well to go build up his fitness, get to where he needs to be, and then come back into the team. Sancho comes back, has a good game here and there, but overall, again, not to the standard you'd like. And then this season, unfortunately, again, not performing in training, coming to training late, slacking, attitude not where it should be. And with Ten Hag trying to instill these new standards at United, I feel like Sancho was given his chances, and he's still just not performing at a level where Ten Hag deems acceptable, whether it's on the pitch or in training. Ten Hag was asked about him, why he didn't feature in the squad against Arsenal, and that's when he came out with a statement saying he was not training to the standard he should be. He's not at a level but you should be at to be in a squad for a game like that. If you actually hear the clip in which he states that, it's not even that inflammatory, to be honest. But then immediately Sancho goes to social media, pins his tweet, so he doubles down on it, and claiming he's being made a scapegoat, this, that, the other. All of it's not true. And then stories have come out since about his attitude and his application. He doesn't like being confronted with things like this, even though he's slacking himself. And then most recently, he has been made to train with the academy team, and he's away from the first team. It's not looking good right now. If I'm being completely honest, if I'm being completely honest, I'm very disappointed in him at the moment. Even though he came in with huge promise, like everyone thought that was a game changer of a signing when he initially came. He's not been at that standard, at that level that you would expect him to be at. And even then, the fan base stuck by him quite a lot. Some are still sticking by him now, I think, to a fault, to be honest. But he's just not performed. And if you're not training right, the manager's given you a chance, like mid-season, to go away, get your head right, come back in the game. If you're not going to take these opportunities and keep doing the same things over and over again, I'm sorry, but you're going to get called out. Like he called him out. He didn't even call him out. I'd say he just talked about his application and training in the post-match press conference at Arsenal. And I'm sure he wanted to see what reaction he'd get. And unfortunately, it was one which is commonplace in this day and age with players at the moment. Instead of going on the pitch and proving everyone wrong, they decide to sulk and go to social media or say it's not fair. Family members come out, all that kind of nonsense. So I don't agree with Sancho on this situation. I think Ten Hag's doing the right thing completely. Very disappointed in him. I'd like to hear your thoughts and cut me off whenever you feel like, because
just a quick question, Badge. Do you think when he mentioned what Erik Ten Hag said after the game against Arsenal about his application and standards in training, that's what you alluded to? And you're right, he didn't say it in a irritated way or in an upset or an angry way. He was just answering a question. Do you think that was a calculated move by Ten Hag with a view to, well, I've tried everything else with this player, now he needs a little bit of perhaps tough love or putting out there? Or do you think that was just him not so calculated, just answering an honest question from a journalist?
No, I genuinely think he picks his words, even though English is not his first language, he chooses his word quite carefully. I do think he wanted to see what kind of reaction he would get as well from the player. It's all guesswork, but if I was to assume, I would say it'd be along those lines. Because like you said, he's tried it the other way, put his arm around him. Even when Sancho did eventually come back, Ten Hag was just so happy for him when he was bringing him onto the pitch and everything. So that's why it's a shame that that faith has kind of not been repaid at all by Sancho. And we are where we are now. So yeah, I'm just disappointed in the whole situation, really.
I think, Ayub, if I may, just very quickly, this is arguably, I would argue, even more so than the Ronaldo removal from the Manchester United squad. This is the most critical time of Erik Ten Hag's and the most testing time of his career so far at Manchester United. The situation with Ronaldo was one where Ronaldo, because he's a legend at Old Trafford, yes, you would get those loyal fans who would ultimately side with him irrespective of what Ronaldo would do. I think it was against Spurs, wasn't it, Badge, when he left the pitch before 90 minutes, I think it was. And if you're a normal player of a normal standard and a normal legacy, you don't get away with that irrespective. You probably get sent home, or you wouldn't be training with the rest of the team and you'd find your way out of the club. I think Ten Hag picked this moment, but because Manchester United had a very successful season last year in his first debut year here as manager of arguably the biggest club in the world, he was given a lot of leeway, Ten Hag, and rightly so. That's how it should be. So a lot of some of the tough decisions that he made were backed by the board and were backed by the fans. Clearly, they saw that this was a manager coming in and wasn't going to pander to some of the stars. He was going to come in, and he alluded to that, didn't he, Badge, this week when he said, when I came in, I think it was today maybe, in his comments in the press conference, that when he came in there was a zero standards or zero high standards. There was something of that effect.
The club asked him to instill these kind of standards because there was no structure previously.
Exactly. So I think last year, a successful season, obviously winning one cup, getting to the final of another, and finishing third, getting him back into the Champions League. Definitely largely a successful season. I think this year it's just been one thing after another for Manchester United, and normally results will mask a lot of what's going on. So last year when they were riding high, you can jettison a Cristiano Ronaldo and there's not that much made of it. If anything, the majority of fans and also footballing analysts thought, yes, it's the right move. Manchester United are going in a certain direction. Ronaldo perhaps doesn't fit that, and therefore Ten Hag was justified in his decision. This is the most testing time, I believe, of Erik Ten Hag's career. Not just some of the stuff that's happening off the field with the ownership situation, but also we've spoken about it at length in this podcast or on previous episodes. The whole situation with Mason Greenwood, the efforts to try and get certain players out of the club. Just there's been various things that have happened this year. I keep harping on about it. The way David De Gea was allowed to leave the club, not so much that he left the club, but just the way it happened, the way it transpired. There's definitely been a few question marks. So I just think, with this situation specifically, you've laid it out very well, Badge, in terms of what the specifics are. If you remember last year when he was sent to Netherlands or asked to go to the Netherlands, I think that was on a specific individual training program. There was some talk about mental health situation. I know we've discussed that as to how these are sometimes used to give the players some space, let's say, so that we don't really probe any further, but that's a conversation for another day. But it's clear that Ten Hag is at the end of this tether with this player. I heard the comment, you're right, the soundbite after the Arsenal game, and you're right, he didn't say it in a pointed way. He was simply saying, look, there are some standards that we need to adhere to in training. The question is, should he have put that out there about the player? I mean, there's two schools of thought on there. You keep everything internal, but the other school of thought would say, well, if you've tried everything with this particular player or personnel internally, you've then got to maybe dig him out a little bit externally. I don't know where I stand on that. I get it to some extent. What I would say is I was surprised with Sancho's response. You're absolutely right. It was to come back.
It's childish. I felt like it was really childish to immediately come out with a statement like that. Like, it's not like you've not even been accused of anything like crazy. It's just. But then just straight away come out with a statement like that, double down on it. It's a bit childlike. It's ill-advised. Whoever his team are need to sort their heads out and advise him in a better way as well.
Agreed. There's a famous sports show host in America who always talks about how you should always take 24 hours and don't press send. And that was never more kind of clear, I think, with this one, because he responded very quickly after that soundbite with Ten Hag. I think you said it was on Twitter. I don't know if it was on Instagram or Twitter. I think it may have been on Instagram.
It was Twitter. He pinned it.
He pinned it.
I'm sure he did it on Insta as well, but
I know one of the comments was deleted shortly thereafter, but apparently it had already got like
60
million views or something.
Yeah. Because he left it on there for like 7 days, 6 days, however long it was, and then he took it down.
Well, I'm sure Ayub's of the school of thought, if you're going to say something, say it with your chest and stand by it. But he's clearly deleted it there afterwards. But just very quickly before you go, Ayub, I think in the end it's a challenging one for Ten Hag. I think it's one that Sancho's perhaps shot himself in the foot, and I always think he's a player entering his third season at Manchester United, came in with a lot of fanfare from Dortmund, one of the hottest young players in Europe. Clearly, the talent was there. If I was to ask Badge what's his most remarkable moment in a United shirt, it's difficult, right? It's not easy to identify what that moment is. He had a nice assist for McTominay last year against Everton, a few other assists.
It's a goal against Liverpool. That's his only real highlight. And even that, it's only because it was against Liverpool. It wouldn't be.
Yeah, and I also thought he took that goal against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge quite well when he went through the length of it. But irrespective, you're looking for consistent performance. If you're buying consistent performances, if you're going to buy a player of that ilk for that price, he's not had many great moments for United. The consistency has nowhere near been there. And ultimately, it's up to the player to make himself indispensable to the club. And I'll finish off with that famous quote, and it's true, what Roy Keane often speaks about, when that famous soundbite where he talks about rotating one or two others, Gary and such like. And he's right. Ultimately, if you're a player and you're training well, which is what his point was, if you're training well, you've got to show to the manager, hey, you better not be rotating me. I need to be playing week in, week out. And never has that been more true. Jadon Sancho simply is not worth the effort. The talent may well be there, but clearly something's not quite right with his mindset and with his application. And ultimately, where Manchester United want to go can you carry passengers? Yes, you can afford one season like that. Can you actually afford to be going into your third season and yet still be trying to get a tune out of a player who clearly needs to up his game himself?
We've got too many of them passengers at the moment as well, so we can't be having another one. He's got a tough job on his hands, this Ten Hag, because the club are really bad in the market at selling players. And like you say, we can't have him being a passenger when you've got about 4 or 5 others that you haven't been able to shift on doing the same thing.
Agreed.
But go on, Ayub. I was sorry to interrupt, mate.
I mean, my take is, if Jadon Sancho was the only issue in terms of players at Manchester United, I'd be absolutely behind Ten Hag. But there's so much that has gone on. I mean, OSU alluded to David De Gea. I think it was disgraceful. I really think for a servant of Manchester United to be almost like sort of ushered through the back door without any fanfare at all.
No, I agree.
Is quite disgraceful. Even with Ronaldo, I know there's obviously mixed reviews in terms of what fans thought of the way that Ronaldo was dealt with. And again, he's an icon of the club, albeit it was his second spell, and he did okay. There's absolutely no question. He came to a struggling United side, and I think he did more than okay. If he doesn't fit the profile of player that Ten Hag wants, fine, say so, and make it an amicable split. But again, it was really, really messy. The one thing that we commended Ten Hag was the way that he treated the Rashford. I think Rashford was late, and he dropped him to the bench. And fair play to Rashford. Rashford took it really, really
exactly.
well.
That's how you should react.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But there's too many other things. The treatment of Maguire, or the way the Maguire affair is being dealt with. Same with McTominay. There's too many of these issues. I have no issue.
What do you mean?
Again, if they do not fit into his plans, just say so. Just say so.
To be fair to Ten Hag, he's backed Maguire in the media constantly. Yeah. Even though he quietly
I was going to say,
immediately take the captaincy off him, and he never ever spoke bad of him in the media. He'd always back the lad. But then quietly behind the scenes, he's done what he needs to do, which is right, to be fair. Is because he's protecting his face, he's protecting the club, he's protecting Maguire in that way as well.
But there's nothing wrong. I mean, in terms of a coach,
McTominay is not a situation, really. To be honest,
I think it is a situation. Remember that game? What game was that? Tottenham, where it was. We've talked about this before, where it was crying out for a player like McTominay or McTominay. He never got any game time at all. I mean, that was and McTominay.
It's up to the manager who he selects. There's nothing like. I don't think there's ill will there.
Yeah, but the question is, I think what Ayub's alluded to is, and it's just a question mark, was that a reference well, I'm not going to go to the play, because I could be wrong, but I think that was game week 2 of the season. Tell me if I'm wrong. And I think the transfer window may have still been open. I'd have to verify that. So the question is, was it a case of, and this, I'm throwing it out there. I'm not saying this was the reason, but it was interesting as Spurs started to overpower the midfield, where you thought obvious choice, bring on McTominay. He refused to do so. Whether that was him giving a sign to McTominay to say, look, you're not really wanted at this football club. I don't really see a place for you. Whether it was something more strategic, because
I think it may have been more to do with if I bring him on and he plays well, the club might not recruit him anyone else. And I'm being genuine with that, because that's how our club's known to be run in the past. He may not have landed Amrabat had McTominay come on and been okay. Is that not
disrespectful? I think that's disrespectful. Then
there's nothing disrespectful about it.
It certainly is. Surely, if you put a player on the bench, then if you don't want to play him, don't put him on the bench.
No, that's not how it works.
No, he's a coach.
Is absolutely not
he
how it
has
works.
to have. Surely he has to have enough dignity, enough self-respect as a coach to say that, right, if I have a player on the bench, the game will dictate as to who I bring on. That time, the game was absolutely crying out for McTominay. But if he's refused to bring him on for political reasons, then that to me is a coach.
This is all hearsay, and like we're just making things up.
No, but as a
United
fan, what was your thoughts at the time that you've got McTominay on the bench, albeit he may not be, obviously he isn't Ten Hag's favourite, but it was, in terms of a player profile, that was the only player that you had that really would fit that break that United had at that stage, because they were overrun. Always just said about overrun in midfield. It needed somebody in that middle of the park who could put their foot in. McTominay was the only one on the bench who probably could have done that, but he refused to bring on a player that really was the only option, or he seemed the only viable option.
You're right. He was the only midfielder that could have maybe plugged that hole, but it doesn't necessarily mean if you bring him on, we're suddenly better. We've had him for
That's
years.
not the question, though, is it? That's not the question.
No,
the
it
question
is.
was,
end of the day, you want to improve your chances of your team winning in the game, and if he doesn't deem that he improves that, doesn't bring him on.
Oh, well,
that's what the coach is. That's what the coach is there for. You don't just.
You're being an apologist for Ten Hag.
No, I'm not, because I agreed with you on the whole De Gea situation. I thought that was handled pathetically, to be honest. Given the guy was there for 10+ years, did everything he could for United.
I think just let go. Yeah, but I think in the end, if I can phrase it like this, in the end, the manager has the right to do what he wants, especially a manager who's he sees them in training every day. But again, it's just more about how you're right. He's pretty much backed Maguire for the most part. He's taken the captaincy off him because he's no longer a regular starter. Erik ten Hag doesn't rate Harry Maguire. I see better than I hear, and ultimately I see his selection. 100%. I see how he rotates. Against Spurs, if I'm not mistaken, he chose to field 2 goalkeepers on the bench. He did not have Harry Maguire on the bench. Again, just I don't know why. I'm not in the ins and outs, but I can read between the lines and think, well, the transfer window's coming to an end. Why has he got 2 goalkeepers on the bench? So it's just all we're saying is that, or at least what I'm saying is, it's a testing time for Ten Hag. It's difficult how to deal with. I don't think he's dealt with this situation particularly badly because you have to listen to the soundbite. He didn't say it in an irritated way or where he lost his cool or his emotion.
It wasn't inflammatory at all. Honest.
The challenge he's got though is that in that same position, he's got another winger with a difficult personal situation who's currently not with the team as well in Anthony. So that's what we mean. It's come together a recipe where it's proving to be a difficult situation right now. There's a couple of bright sparks. We've spoken about it, Højlund and a few others, but it'll just be interesting how they deal with the situation. Will they reintegrate Sancho back with the squad? Clearly, there's an issue right now because he's not apologized to Ten Hag. If stories are to be believed,
he refused to.
He refused to. So they'll have to find a way to get a resolution because ultimately, last time I checked, there's no transfer window around until January. So it's a mess. And in the end, if you want to be achieving big things, you've got to be avoiding distractions like these.
No, agreed. I absolutely agree with that. I think obviously he clearly has no control over the Anthony or Greenwood situations. They were just personal matters that have gotten out of hand, and that's something they have to deal with. But
on the Greenwood badge, you say he had no control. Now, United were trying to integrate Greenwood back into the squad. They were testing the waters.
100%, yeah.
So once it appeared that public opinion was very much against it, do you think Ten Hag been influenced by public opinion? Is he gone by that?
No, ultimately, it's not his call. That's not his call.
Yeah, he would have been back.
He would have been asked, "Do you want this guy back?" We've got an astounding lack of firepower in our front line. So I think he was happy to have him back, to be honest, from a footballer's perspective. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not his call whether they flip-flop. That's on the club.
Just on that, if Ferguson, I know obviously this is long past Ferguson's time, but if Ferguson was the coach and Ferguson wanted Greenwood back, irrespective of public opinion, what do you think Ferguson would have done?
Well, Ferguson can do whatever he wants. Yeah. There's only one other manager in the world right now that can do that, and that's probably Pep.
Honestly, I really do think that even Sir Alex would have had a challenge with that one. Honestly,
no, but you know what I mean. They've got
clout. They've got clout.
They're such clinical winners that they can pull strings if they want to, but hardly anyone bar them can do that.
Well, the question is, I guess the argument would be, and maybe this is putting way too much respect on Sir Alex Ferguson's name, but the question, maybe the more obvious question would be that would Greenwood have been the way he was, and I don't just mean in his personal life. If you had someone like a Sir Alex Ferguson in charge, that attitude may have been a lot different. Let's say, because it wasn't just that personal incident, was it? It was, as Ayub eloquently put it in one of the previous episodes, about the issue that he had when he joined up with England with Phil Foden. So yeah, if you have a Sir Alex Ferguson in charge, you probably
I wouldn't go that far. He had Ryan Giggs for pretty much all his career.
Well, he did all of that.
Let's we digress. We digress.
Yeah.
How do you see? I mean, Badge, it's a big game tomorrow.
It's a massive game.
I think it's at 3:00, which is a little disappointing. It's
very disappointing.
Yeah, it's a game warrants.
Wolves versus Liverpool. Who gives one about that?
Massive game.
I think they also have a quarter badge, so they do have to show a certain number of teams a certain number of times. But how do you see the game panning out? It's a big one. It's at home. Obviously, you lost there last year at home to Brighton, first game of the season, when they deservedly went out. I think 2-0 winners, 2-1 winners. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But how do you see the game faring out? And do you think it is game week 5? Yes, early doors. But do you think it is quite a critical game, even at this early point?
It's massively critical. I think I've spoken to you about this in private previously, where if we are to lose this Brighton game and then our Bayern game in the Champions League, the pressure would be unbelievable on Ten Hag and United. You know what? I was a bit more worried before. I think the fact that Lisandro Martinez is now fit and available for the game instills a lot of confidence in me, because if we were going in with Lindelof and Maguire, yeah, I would not fancy our chances against that Brighton attack. I think I fancy it a little bit more now with Lindelof and Martinez in the heart of the defence. We've got exciting debutants. Rasmus Højlund, I'm pretty sure, will start up front for us. In his little cameo at the Emirates, he looked ace. He looked like he had a lot of potential, had a lot about him, to be fair. Strength, speed, power. So it'll be exciting to see him make his full home debut. I'm sure that won't be easy for the Brighton centre-backs. I pinpointed this last time, I'll pinpoint it again. Mitoma versus Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka has come out on top every single time.
Famous last words.
No, it's true. It's true, but at the same time, he's not even got a take on against him in the last few games. So I'm confident in Wan-Bissaka, can keep him quiet again. Evan Ferguson is the big one, but I think he will find less joy potentially against Martinez and Lindelof as opposed to Maguire and Lindelof. But I genuinely think there's a good chance for us beating them. There is a worry because when Brighton want to turn up, they are an unbelievable side on their day. So there is that. But I do think we will come out winners of that game.
Bullish. What do you think of you?
I don't think. I mean, obviously, I expect a certain amount of confidence from Badge. I'm not sure why, because I don't think they've done really anything to inspire any confidence. Even I think the games that you've won, I think by all accounts they were performances which were sort of below par.
Yeah. Poor performances.
And it's not the sort of game, I think, with all this background noise, the last game that Brighton probably isn't the place that you want to go to. But I think there should be some optimism, certainly from that cameo. I mean, you've just talked about Højlund. I mean, I've put him in my fantasy Premier League side for 7 million. It's an absolute steal. He was sensational. I know it's a very, very small sample size, but my goodness me, that was a performance where it's edge of the seat stuff. It was really exciting. He seems the complete centre forward, so I'm really looking forward to his performance. I mean, I think the best shout for United probably is a draw. I've got my mind tells me it's going to be a Brighton win, but I'm just looking forward to see how Højlund performs because I've got him in my league.
Yeah, you'll be hoping so if he's your only change.
And I want Mitoma to absolutely rinse. You know what's going to happen now.
No, mate.
Aaron Wan-Bissaka is a very, very good defender. So let's see. Yeah, I think it's the game of the week. I think it's a big one, not just for the story, because of the stories that we've just laid out. some of the unrest at Old Trafford. But I think I don't know why, but it's obviously one of the stories that we're following. This Roberto De Zerbi, every big ground that he attends away from home, I see it as a bit of a audition, so to speak, because I do think he'll be managing a top club next season. It'll be interesting. Last year, Brighton, again, deservedly beat United early doors in the season. United still obviously got a few injury issues, right, Badge? I think with Mount still out, Shaw, I believe, still out as well. So there's a couple of injuries there, but Højlund should start. And I think he should start because at home, the crowd's going to be up for it. And I think, Ayub, I don't
he will start.
Yeah, he will start. And I really don't think Ayub was overstating it. His cameo at the Emirates, it's more just the characteristics. That's what you look for in a player. It's not just, that's, let's not get too carried away. It's the fact that he looks up for the fight. He's battling,
Yeah,
and that's going to endear him to the Manchester United faithful. Clearly, they've not had a striker battling like that with centre backs for a long time. Martial's very kind of sweet and innocent, doesn't really want to engage too much with the kind of feisty, aggressive centre backs like a Gabriel and what have you. But he's there going up against Gabriel, shirts being hooked, arms being hooked, and what have you. But that's what you want. You want aggression from your centre forward. If the centre back's dishing it out, you need a centre forward that's willing to dish it back. So very interested to see his home debut or his full debut, let's say. I think it will be a score draw, though. Brighton are a very good team, and I think although United may well start off well, I think if Brighton can ride that initial wave and momentum coming from United, who'll be looking to get a goal early doors, I see it maybe as a score draw, because Brighton are a top team. They can beat any team, in my opinion, including Man City home and away. They beat Man City last year after the title was pretty much sewn up, or drew, I think it was, at home. But Brighton are a very good team, and again, interesting to see how their manager fares at a big ground in a big head-to-head matchup. I think it's the game of the season, and a real shame that it's not in front of the TV cameras for me.
Yeah, big shame. And you say, where does my confidence come from, Ayub? The two games that we have won this season, both at home, and we've won 27 and drawn 4 since our last defeat at home, which ironically was to Brighton. So that's where the confidence lies, mate. 27 out of 31.
Fair enough, Stato.
Yeah. I got the stats today. But yeah, moving on for Manchester United. I'm just going to throw it out there, boys. Have you got your eyes on any of the games this weekend?
I'll go quickly, Ayub, if I may.
Yeah,
Spurs Sheffield United. I'm going to go through a few. Spurs Sheffield United. You think Spurs should have plenty? I know, Ayub, you've said to us that. We'll come on to your favourite subject, Luton Town. But how many points do you see Sheffield United getting?
They'll get more than 10 points.
Okay.
They will do.
Very kind of you, that.
Let's see. But yes, Spurs.
More than 10 points. 10 points.
yeah.
A little throwback.
I'll need to dig that YouTube show out again. But Spurs against Sheffield United, you'd fancy Spurs to continue where they've left off. I think James Maddison did get the Premier League Player of the Month, as I suggested, Ayub. But yeah,
and Ange got Manager of the Month.
Yeah, indeed. Although that often doesn't mean anything. Nuno also got August Premier League Manager of the Month, but no, Ange
and then the free fall begins.
Indeed, but
that's Moggy's worry. That's what he was saying to me this afternoon.
This manager,
right to be worried.
No, this manager's got a bit more about him. Come on. And look, ultimately, so yes, fancy Spurs. In terms of some of the other games, West Ham City, I still expect Manchester City to come through. They've got a few injury issues still. Stones, I think Grealish is out, as is Kovacic. But again, when you've got a machine up front, I expect that.
What does it matter? Don't even talk about them.
Yeah, I think Man City
win.
I think Man City will come through that. Newcastle, Brentford, and kind of an understated, tough game, but also an important one. A tough Champions League group to come, as Badge suggested earlier. Champions League kicks off in midweek, right? So it'll be interesting to see. I imagine it kicks off for them in midweek as well. I'll have to double check that. But Newcastle, Brentford, off the back of 3 defeats, Newcastle, they've lost City Liverpool and Brighton, I think it was. So they need a home win against a team that's doing okay, Brentford. So let's see. The only one, obviously, from a selfish perspective, and then I'll let Ayub share his thoughts. Everton, Arsenal, in front of the Sky cameras.
Oh, that'd be selfish perspective, man.
I don't always talk about my team, but I will do. Arsenal don't have a good record against against Everton, especially away from home. Badge, we discussed it offline, didn't we? I think it's 4 defeats and 1 draw.
Yeah, they're a bit of a bogey team for Arsenal.
They are. I think it was Rooney. Ever since Rooney scored that goal many years ago, I don't think it's been.
Remember the name
exactly. But no, I think that'll be a game Arsenal will be looking to finally correct. If you remember last year, they lost there 1-0.
Was that Dyche's first game?
Yeah, it was his first home game. It was his first home game.
Okay.
But yeah, chances missed at the start by Nketiah. But to be fair, Everton in the end, I thought deserved to win. Calvert-Lewin missed a few easy chances early doors. So it'll be interesting to see how Arsenal fare. Another big away test. I actually think they'll look better away from home than home in a lot of games. In my opinion, they're probably better suited to play away from home. But Everton have been atrocious.
Horrible side.
And they've just recently been subject to a takeover just now as well with some controversial partners, maybe
777 partners.
Indeed, legal cases everywhere in America. But anyway, but yeah, look, that'll be an interesting one. Super.
Yeah, but what are you saying?
I think Arsenal will just come through.
Just come through.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Everton, they've been put to the sword by a few teams, and if Arsenal have their A game, big question mark over the selection of Havertz. Let's see. But if Arsenal play well, come on, they should have plenty. To be fair,
I mean, the only game there's a game that I'm really interested. I mean, it's not really, I suppose, the most exciting of
Leeds,
the Bournemouth Chelsea one. No, Bournemouth Chelsea, purely because I think Chelsea, it's been a stuttering start to the season, and again, they've spent a lot of money, and it's just curious that when will Chelsea sort of be a club that really sort of justifies the status that it has, the expense that it obviously, or the expensive array of players that have been assembled. It just doesn't seem to be happening. You would have thought with Pochettino that it would have been right. We've got a good manager now, that maybe this is the start. I think the first game they played, they performed decently against Liverpool. I thought it was a really good performance, but they've just not kicked on. So that I'm quite keen to keep an eye on in terms of, are Chelsea just finding a style of play that maybe, I suppose, because I presume Chelsea and their expectations are a top 4. They must be, and at the moment, the way it's going, I would be really surprised if they got top 4. So that's an interesting one. In terms of Saturday,
on that one, Ayub, I'm going to ask the nuclear question, and we teased this during our quiz, if you remember, Badge. But do you see, under any circumstances, Mauricio Pochettino not lasting the entire season?
From my point of view, I mean,
what did he say? Do you remember?
I think it's not. I mean, you seem absolutely confident that there is no way, under no circumstances, will Chelsea fire Pochettino.
Who is?
Yeah. I am.
Okay.
He's right.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I think it will be difficult for a season, but really, if they're struggling, if they're sort of outside the top 10, sort of come January, February. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what
they are? There's every chance he gets sacked. Every single chance. If they're not doing well, like Ayub says, by Jan, it could be as early as Jan.
No, come on, guys.
Honest to God, it could be as early as Jan.
Yeah, this
is Chelsea here.
Yeah. This is the thing, because it's Chelsea. I mean, I could understand other clubs maybe where there's a little bit more sanity. I think with Chelsea, it's a club that it's knee-jerk reactions. I mean, I'd be amazed if Chelsea are struggling come January, February, because I think there's too much quality. They've got a quality coach, but it's interesting just to sort of see how it's developing. You're right, Newcastle, Brentford. It's a fixture that probably doesn't excite, but it's a decent fixture. But the one that I'm really looking out for is Fulham Luton. That's the big one. That's the monster.
Oh, God.
But there's a reason why. There's a reason why. It's
Go on.
It's obviously watching Luton lose. That's I've sort of said they're not going to win a game.
Well,
Oh,
you
my
heard
goodness.
you heard what their manager said regarding
To Crooksy.
Garth Crooks, yes, regarding his comments about how, I think Garth Crooks said something along the lines of they'll be relegated by Christmas or something along those lines, and
He's been listening. He's been watching our podcast. He's listening to me.
It's good to know we're attracting such an audience. But are you're sticking by it
I'm
regarding
absolutely sticking by it. Yeah, I mean there is absolutely no way they're going to win a game of football.
Can you just confirm what you mean is Premier League game of football?
Oh yeah, Premier League.
I feel like you're just kind of casting as if they're never going to win a Premier League and never going to win a game of football ever.
And it will be less than 10 points in the whole season.
Wow.
It's, I mean, they've been incredibly short this season. And you win games off the back of being competitive, right? Let's be honest. And they've just not been competitive. You saw some of the goals they conceded against Brighton. Absolutely kamikaze defending. And the step up from Championship, you spoke about this about 4 or 5 episodes ago about how you've been watching the Championship, and it's only when you start watching Premier League that you realize, wow, there's a massive gulf in quality, and there really is. And given we've discussed that they've not really kind of put their foot to the pedal in terms of just trying to recruit properly, like Nottingham Forest did, be aggressive in trying to stay up, and they did. You're going to get left behind, aren't you? So very interesting to see. So you want to give a quick score prediction for the Fulham Luton? Because obviously at Stamford Bridge a couple of weeks ago, you suggested Chelsea would score
double figures.
Double figures. And I checked the score at half-time as 1-0. I was like, they better get a wriggle on.
I was absolutely gutted, yeah. It's 3 or 4-1. 3 or 4-1 to they will score a goal against Fulham.
Okay,
I'm being conservative here. Wait until they play Man City.
He said 3 or 4-1. Fulham have only scored 4 all season. So
yeah, they're playing Luton. I mean, I'd go as far as sort of say. I mean, this is why. I mean, every time I see Luton in the Premier League. It absolutely. I'm gutted. I've said it before, and I will say it again. If we were in the Premier League this year, then it would be the easiest time to stay in the Premier League. I reckon Leeds United Football Club at this moment are better than Luton. And we're in the Championship. We're 13th in the Championship.
Absolutely not. It doesn't work that way. You got relegated. So just
does it not?
Yeah. So,
you're not even flying. You're not even flying in the Championship.
Yeah,
exactly. Fodder.
mid story of Ayub's life, really. But I was just going to say, I think another game we've just not mentioned is Monday evening.
The Monster. That's even. Oh yeah.
Forest too.
My goodness.
Nottingham Forest, Burnley, and the reason I say that is because I think Burnley, because I just think Burnley. If you remember, when we spoke to George as well, the idea was that you both agreed that Luton and Sheffield United probably are dead certs for relegation, and that third spot we ummed and ahed with a few. I think we settled on Wolves for the time being. But Nottingham Forest, Burnley, I mean, they got spanked at home by Spurs. They obviously got beaten convincingly at home against City. So yeah, not the easiest fixtures, but they've also not done anything in between. So these are the kind of games they're going to have to start picking up points, right? As soon as you start losing, like, it's easy to write off some of the big games, but in between, you've got to be getting a few wins against teams in and around yourself or what have you. So I think it's an understated big game for Vincent Kompany. There was some talk, I think, during the last game, I think with the start against Spurs, if memory serves, about how I think he started a lot of the experienced players on the bench, and I think he's just trying to go through that process of getting them minutes, getting them exposure and experience, these young lads, let's say. But at some point, that's going to have to turn, and what they don't want is where they're at the 10-game mark, 1-1, drawn 1, lost 8 or something, and getting cast adrift. I'm not sure if teams are going to get cast adrift, because there are a few other teams probably going to be fighting relegation, but it's probably a game where they'll want to pick up a point away from home against a team that should be battling them for that last relegation spot. I say last. So yeah, I think a bit of a high pressure game, I think, even at this early juncture for Vincent Kompany.
Cover your ears if you're a Sheffield United, Luton and Burnley fan, but I think this is the first season in a long time that 3 teams that have come up are just horrible and useless. I hope they go down the devil fibre of my being, to be honest. Waste of space, all 3 of them.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely
usually a
agree.
club comes up and you're like, "Oh, they've got a bit about them." No,
But Burnley have got a bit
no,
about them, though.
no. I hope they go down.
But the hope is one thing. Are you saying that they're the third worst team in the
They're
league? If you
so
say,
uninteresting. There's nothing about them that excites you.
No, but Burnley, I'll give some allowance. I mean, we've obviously got George. Plus, also they've
Oh,
got a decent. No.
I'm
But
not
also they've
having
got a
this.
decent manager, and then at least they're trying to play decent football. But in terms of
Yeah, but-
Forest as well, I've just checked Forest's results and the games that they have. I mean, they've won 2 games already
Wait,
out
Forest
of
are
4.
flying.
And the ones that they've lost, they've just lost 2-1 against Arsenal,
Arsenal
3-2
United.
against Manchester United. So I've not really watched any of Forest in details, but it
Well-
appears that they seem to be playing okay.
Yeah, well, again, they got the big win at Stamford Bridge, didn't they?
And they've recruited heavily.
And if the big man up front keeps playing as he is, they'll be fine.
Funny, one game you guys have not mentioned is the 12:30 kickoff, Liverpool versus Wolves.
Well, you
Anyways,
said it. Hey, don't you be doing that to Liverpool fans? You're not in their good books as it
Hey,
is.
listen. Hey, in all honesty, Liverpool's record after these international breaks, and especially half-12 kickoffs, is not great. So
Jurgen Klopp didn't take too kindly to that line of questioning in the press conference. He got very touchy about it. But
yeah, he got touchy about a few things, didn't he?
he is. But winning masks all, as we said in our opening segment, and that will be an interesting game. You're right.
Question marks over a win there, though.
Can I ask a question? Do you think there's any way that Liverpool? I even feel bad asking this question. Because it's probably a strong, stern no. But do you see any way that Liverpool could end up top goal scorers in the league?
That's a good question, actually. I think there's a chance. I think there's a good chance. Because they
very
do
good
have
chance.
they have firepower. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
They do have firepower.
You think they could beat out City for the goals? Go on. Are you feet to the fire? They are your pick for the Premier League title.
I think City are more reliant on, obviously not more reliant, but Haaland is going to get about 66% of their goals.
So that's 60 goals.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good question, and I think there's some sides. Liverpool are absolutely going to give them a good spanking. Luton springs to mind.
What is it with you and Luton?
Yeah, I do. I honestly, I think
potentially, I can't even predict those games anymore.
Yeah, because it's almost. I mean, it's if they get onto a roll, they've got goal scorers everywhere.
Yeah,
I think they will do.
A lot of firepower.
I think the thing with City is you can absolutely book them for a couple of. They're gonna absolutely smash a few teams. Like it feels a bit more certain in terms of City. The fact that they will put a few past a few teams, maybe De Bruyne. Yeah, but let's. I think it'll be close. I do think it'll be close.
But that's a good game to keep an eye on. Start the weekend off. It shouldn't have been televised because no one cares. But I think
I think other Liverpool.
My shout for the title, Liverpool.
As you told us,
I just can't help myself. I don't know. I apologize. I will be professional from here on out. Moving on. Let's talk about FPL, gents, and FPL tips. Can I just say,
yes?
Can I just say the last time I gave out FPL tips, it was a masterstroke, was it not, Wes?
Well, do you want to remind us, or can you not even remember?
Odson Edouard and Eberechi Eze. Edouard being the one that I highlighted more out of the two. And come on, it was genius in the end. Yeah. Let's be honest.
Took his goals well. Took his
goals well. I told you he's getting in good positions. Who's he got this week?
And what about that Mateta assist for the Eze goal?
That was very nice. I like that.
That was nice. But no, absolutely. Maybe I should give you the floor then with the FPL tips.
I'm in 60th position in the league. I'm
77th.
I don't take my own advice.
I'm in around probably that area as well. It was not a great week for me in game week 4. Obviously, I don't have Erling Haaland, which we should probably dedicate a full episode to at some point as to why. But that's brutal. And listen, these tips is separate to what we expect Haaland to do every week. We all accept that Haaland scores goals and he's a dead cert every week, irrespective of the fixture, home or away. But let's go with the dead certs first. Which player do we think absolutely? And I'm going to go with, let's all pick one. I think the player 100% to have, aside from Erling Haaland again, I think is Heung-min Son. Home to Sheffield United, off the back of a hat-trick. Will he play him up front? Perhaps. Why would he change a winning formula? Maybe Son is going to step up in Harry Kane's absence. They've got a nice balance to their team with Solomon, Maddison and Kulusevski. They're getting further forward. At home, they've definitely got a feel-good factor. As you mentioned, Badge, Manager of the Month, Player of the Month. Maddison, off the back of obviously joining up with England. He's part of that England setup now in around the squad. You expect him, if he continues with this form, to definitely go to the Euros. So I think another convincing home win. And off the back of that, you'd have to think Son's going to be in around the point. So I'm going to go for Son as the dead cert or player to have for sure for this game week. What do you think, Ayub?
Salah for me. I think Salah.
Right.
What more? What more do you want?
Care to elaborate?
I know, yeah. I really want an in-depth analysis on why
Yes.
Mohamed Salah is.
There's nothing in depth about my analysis. All it is they're playing Wolves. I think they're
managed by Gary O'Neill. Are you? Be careful.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm
That's more
surprised you
reason
didn't
why.
say Raúl Jiménez.
So I've just got a feeling
Considering
that
he's playing
it will be. Do you know we were talking
Yeah.
about Liverpool giving teams a spanking? I've just got a feeling that tomorrow may be one of those days where Liverpool, the forward line, will be absolutely on song. You've got a wonderful midfield. If Liverpool score lots of goals, I've got a feeling that Salah will be enjoying himself. So I would advise our viewers, bearing in mind this is from a man who's 77th in the league.
Yeah.
Make him your captain.
Yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. What do you think, Badge?
I genuinely feel like this may be the game week where Ollie Watkins actually gets off the mark. Palace aren't too bad at the moment, but I do think Ollie Watkins is due. He's got a couple of assists, no goals as of yet, but he's getting in positions. He arguably should have had goals by now. But he's one to keep an eye on this weekend. Brentford are very leaky away from home, very leaky. So I would look at Isak potentially to get you some goals. I'll flat out go ahead and say who I brought in this week. I have gone for, and this was an emotional decision, so I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I brought in Højlund.
Of course you have.
Yeah, of course, mate. 7 million.
He could have come on at the Emirates in the 91st minute, done one sprint down the right flank, and you'd have been like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that against Brighton.
Yeah, no, because I've got an absence of United players in my team. I need to have one. And I genuinely believe like it's set up for him to have a good home debut. If this happened if this match, there was an international break between the Arsenal game and this one, and there was a big, big mess as it's been so far, then I'd be less optimistic. But I am optimistic in the way. But the fact that Ayub's made that decision as well doesn't bode well for me.
I've got rid of Isaac, my favourite player from last year.
Your favourite player, full stop.
It takes me no time to give up on players that I love.
Yeah,
I think the one you mentioned, Uwais, is the one. I think Heung-min Son. If I could afford him, I would have brought him in. But
how much is he?
He's 9 million, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe 8.9, maybe dropped or maybe come back up.
So interesting. So for dead certs, we've gone for Heung-min Son, Ayub's gone for Salah, and Badge, you've gone for Ollie Watkins, I think, in the end. And you're right.
Less so a dead cert, but I just feel like
agreed.
He's due. He's
Agreed.
due.
Let's go for wildcard picks. I think this player has had a very good start of the season. We gave him a little bit of a build-up in the summer when Liverpool bought him, and we discussed his long-range shooting, which has already got them one goal, if you remember, against Bournemouth when Jota tapped in. But I think Szoboszlai at Liverpool very quickly has become a very important member of that team. He's incredible. He reminds me, and I don't mean this in terms of his ilk, but having watched him play for his former team a little bit, albeit on highlights, but his combination play with Nkunku was incredible at times. But he reminds me a little bit of like De Bruyne in terms of the way he moves. Like he's a good runner. He's happy to run through the lines, run into the final third. He's happy to get into that kind of third man place, which is kind of De Bruyne kind of peak form, let's say, over the last 12, 24, 36 months, that kind of third man run in the right hand channel, which he's pretty much patented as Kevin De Bruyne. But I think he's got that type of athleticism, but he's also got that type of shooting as well. Of course, he's not of the ilk of Kevin De Bruyne. Let's not get it twisted. But I think he's suddenly becoming quite, again, an important member of that Liverpool team. And I think given his value in terms of midfield,
I
think so, something around those. But just if you can get a midfielder for that price for Liverpool, which are going to score a lot of goals, we all believe that, and he's a good assist threat. He started to take some of the set pieces off Trent Alexander-Arnold. Any free kicks beyond about 25 yards, he seems to have. He took one against Newcastle, albeit hit it over, but he's got a good shot on him. I think away from home, when you expect Wolves to play a little bit, wouldn't be surprised if he gets in on maybe some assists away to Wolves.
Interesting. I feel like you're trying to appease the Liverpool fan base because I'm constantly dumping on them, but fair enough. I mean, there is some logic to that. Are you, mate? any dark horses?
Hoyland.
No.
Because I've got him in my side.
No, I guess you're right.
Yeah. I absolutely. We have all got to a certain extent carried away, but he's a good player. You don't pay, what is it, 75, 80 million for a player who obviously is substandard. So I think if he gets the service, I mean, if he's playing centrally, I think he can create. If he gets on the end of crosses, I think he seems to be somebody that can put the ball in the back of the net. Even though his record, I mean, for Denmark, I think it's 6 in 6, but his club record, he's not been prolific.
He's only had one senior season at a top league in Serie A, where he was he got 9 in 30, and I think 20 of those were starts.
So it'll be interesting to sort of see whether is he.
As a 19-year-old, they're good numbers.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's just a case of it's the age rather than just whether he's got the ability to be a clinical striker. But I'm looking forward to that. I mean, not just because I've got him in my fantasy Premier League. I genuinely am quite excited just to see what he brings.
Yeah, and you saw him in midweek, I think, playing for Denmark, right? And got the old tannoy out and was feeling good about himself. So yeah, just super interested just to see how he gets.
It's niggering a little when you said that, Wes.
No. I like young players who feel confident, and listen, I'm sure he'll back it up. So let's see.
You're just seeing things, Bash. He wasn't seeing through it at all.
Wildcard pick for me this week, Dominic Solanke for Bournemouth. I do feel like they could potentially get goals against Chelsea, and he's getting better hitting the back of the net as well. So Dominic Solanke is the option.
It's not a bad shout. I think Chelsea, you mentioned it, they probably need to win, don't they? After you can't be losing at home to Nottingham Forest, especially when you're a manager managing that club. Early doors, trying to create a good feeling between you and the fans. But that's a tough defeat. Then to go off on the international break off the back of that. So yeah, big game. Solanke, yeah, definitely a player that's growing on me. I don't think it's clinical, but I don't think Bournemouth are that good. But so I don't put it all at his feet. Situation to avoid, I'll call it a situation. And maybe this is obvious, but I would not be picking any Burnley defenders. Not saying anyone will, but I would definitely not be picking any Burnley defenders.
All right, let me make a note of that.
No, but look, we discussed it. Awani started off like a house on fire, and they look a threat. I mean, at home, they'll be fine, right? They'll pick up enough points at home, but let's be honest, they were unlucky. I thought they were a little unlucky against Arsenal not to take the lead. And after being 2-0, there were just too many minutes left at that game at Old Trafford, essentially. So going 2-0 up at Old Trafford, they'll be upset that they didn't come away with at least a point, albeit having to hold out for quite some time, especially then with 10 men. But Nottingham Forest look like they've got something about them. Ayub, I know another player that you like a lot, Morgan Gibbs-White, but there's clearly something forming there. And Awani, genuinely, I having watched him closely last season, I remember him scoring against Liverpool in that, I think it was Saturday lunchtime kickoff. But he looked gangly. He didn't look all that mobile. And you're thinking, yeah, I get it, because also Forest have had a lot of kind of incomings, outgoings. So, it's hard as a striker as well, just to get that chemistry. But I think now maybe perhaps with the preseason, things settling a little bit and forging a decent partnership with Gibbs White and a few others. But he's arguably one of the most improved players in the Premier League from what I've seen. Lovely little assist. Lovely little. It'll be interesting to see if Elanga starts as well, Badge. A player that I do like.
I feel like he's kind of earned his start at this point, Elanga, especially with Brandon Johnson leaving. I think every time he's come off the bench, made an appearance from, he's looked good. Yeah. So I would keep an eye on that Elanga coming in, because he'll come in at a low cost as well. Yeah.
But yeah, just to finish off that thought, Burnley conceding 5 at home to Spurs could have been a few more. It just you said they're uninteresting. I probably wouldn't be that harsh, but their defending was just, it's too open at this level. You can't let good players pick their heads up and leave tons of space in behind. It's just, that's basic football 101. So I don't think they'll be keeping a clean sheet on Monday night, and it'll be interesting to see how the Monday Night Football guys break down some of Burnley's shortcomings this season. So yeah, Burnley clean sheet, no chance.
Clean sheet, no chance. I like the way you've put that. There was Diaby from Villa as well, who's still kind of going under the radar, although I've not seen his ownership as of yet. But another one to keep an eye on. I would mention some Brighton players, but I don't think they're wild cards at this point. I think everyone has them.
Well, you can't mention Mitoma after you've said he's going to have a quiet game.
Oh, yeah, he's one to take out this week, ladies and gentlemen.
It's too late. I've done my changes.
Yeah, but the deadline's tomorrow, Ayub.
Oh, quick captaincy.
Oh, yeah,
Who we going? Who we going?
Okay, well, Erling Haaland could be your captain 38 game weeks, but I'd have to go with Salah's a decent bet for captaincy, because he's still on penalties, isn't he? And they will score tomorrow, you'd think. So, captaincy, which game's going to get a lot of goal? Son. I'm going to go with Son again, to be honest. Yeah. Going to go with
It's got to be Salah. It's got to be Salah.
Oh, we're both going for midfielders. Very nice. I think that's the most value for money. I think Son is probably your best bet. Haaland, obviously. He's never a bad bet. I'm looking at captaining Højlund.
Of course you are. It's just so predictable. I'm
gonna being 77. I'm actually gonna just do that.
Yeah, who cares? Do it.
I've got to that stage where I'm not gonna win the damn thing. So let's swing wild.
Badge definitely does love hard, doesn't he? He doesn't do things in halves, does he?
That's the way it should be. That's the way it should always be.
Of course. But yeah. Good. That is a wrap, ladies and gents. Thank you for joining us both. I know Ayub's got a hearty meal to be running off to right now. Any idea where you're going in case, or do you not want to dox yourself?
Kebabish in Blackburn.
Kebabish. Oh, so if you see Ayub, anyone listening, even though this will be way after,
no. Knowing the way that I eat and the friends that I'm going with, we might still be there at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, probably.
Well, enjoy your meal. And remember, guys, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Leave a comment down below on your thoughts on United, Sancho. If you got any FPL tips and think you're all that, feel free to share. But that is the show, and I believe we will be doing another one next week, early next week at some point. I'm sure we'll be doing a review on this weekend and any other breaking news.
Yeah,
so...
and on Højlund's hat-trick.
Yes. You laugh now.
I'm having him as captain.
That's all it took.
You know what? Honestly, I wish I knew he'd brought him in. I wouldn't have brought him in. I feel like I'm going the wrong way here. But but yeah, like to subscribe, all the good stuff. And in the meantime, until we catch you on the next one, don't stray off.